In the shadow of the majestic Grand Teton, a family vanished without a trace, their laughter swallowed by the rugged wilderness that defines this iconic landscape. A survivalist father, a devoted mother, and their two young children, a son and a daughter, set out on what should have been a routine day hike through the towering peaks and pristine valleys of Grand Teton National Park on a crisp September morning in 2016. The family, known for their love of the outdoors, had spent years exploring nature's wonders together, their bond as unbreakable as the granite spires that loomed above them. But as the sun dipped below the horizon on September 12th, they simply never returned. 7 years later, a chilling discovery deep within a hidden cave, marked by the relentless passage of time, still sends shudders through the investigators who uncovered it. A secret so shocking it defies belief, leaving the world to wonder what dark fate befell the family, whose smiling faces once graced a snapshot against those very mountains. For 7 long years, the Tetons held their silence, guarding a mystery that gripped the nation and left a mother's heart in tatters waiting for answers that never came, until now. The image of that family, captured in a moment of pure joy with the snow-capped peaks as their backdrop, haunts the collective memory, a stark contrast to the emptiness that followed their disappearance. The day began with promise, the kind of crisp autumn morning that beckons adventurers to the wild. The father, a man named Harper, was a seasoned outdoorsman with a resume that read like a survivalist's handbook, decades of experience leading expeditions, teaching wilderness skills, and navigating some of the most unforgiving terrains in North America. His wife, Mara, shared his passion, her expertise as a botanist adding a layer of knowledge about the flora that dotted their path. Their son, 10-year-old Jonah, and daughter, 8-year-old Lila, were eager companions, their young eyes wide with wonder at the world their parents opened to them. The family had parked their weathered SUV at the Lupine Meadows trailhead, a popular starting point for hikers aiming to conquer the lower slopes of the Grand Teton. They carried lightweight packs filled with essentials: water, snacks, a first aid kit, and Elias's trusted topographic maps, prepared for a 6-hour loop that would take them through alpine meadows and along a gentle ridge before looping back to the trailhead by late afternoon. The plan was meticulous, a reflection of Elias's disciplined nature, and Mara had even packed extra layers for the children, anticipating the chill that settles in the mountains as the day wanes. But as 6 p.m. approached, the agreed return time, a cold dread began to creep into the hearts of those who waited. Back at the trailhead, a small group of fellow hikers who had crossed paths with the Harpers earlier that day grew uneasy. They had exchanged pleasantries around noon, marveling at the children's enthusiasm as they pointed out wildflowers Mara identified with ease. The family had been making good time, their laughter echoing through the pines, a sound that now seemed a cruel memory. By 7 p.m., with no sign of the Harpers, the hikers alerted park rangers, sparking the beginning of a search that would stretch into a desperate, fruitless endeavor. Ranger Elena Voss, a veteran of the park with 15 years of service, took the lead, her weathered face etched with concern as she coordinated the initial response. The Harpers weren't novices. They knew the risks of the mountains, from sudden weather shifts to the deceptive calm of a hidden ravine. Elias had taught survival courses, emphasizing the importance of staying on trail and signaling for help if lost. Yet here they were, gone without a whisper. The first 48 hours saw helicopters slicing through the sky, their searchlights piercing the dense forest canopy, while ground teams combed the trails, calling out names that echoed back unanswered. The children's small footprints, once a joyful trace, became a haunting clue, fading into the earth as if the mountains had erased them. Days turned into weeks, and the search expanded, drawing in volunteers from across Wyoming and beyond. The terrain was a formidable adversary: steep slopes cloaked in lodgepole pine, boulder fields that swallowed sound, and hidden crevices where a family could vanish without a trace. Ranger Voss led her teams with a grim determination, her mind racing through scenarios. A fall, a bear encounter, a misstep into a snowmelt-fed stream, but no evidence emerged. No torn clothing, no dropped gear, Not even a single footprint beyond the initial trail. The absence of clues was maddening, a silence that spoke louder than any cry for help. Mara's parents, who had driven from Idaho to wait at the ranger station, clung to hope, their eyes red from sleepless nights while the community rallied, plastering posters of the family's smiling faces across towns from Jackson to Cody. The media descended, turning the disappearance into a national story, with headlines speculating wildly: kidnapping, a planned exodus, or a tragic accident swallowed by the wild. Yet, as the first month passed, the official search scaled back, leaving only the whispers of the wind and the unresolved ache of a family torn apart. Don't let this story fade into oblivion. Subscribe now, before another family's mystery goes unheard, and join us to uncover the truth that could save others. The years that followed were a slow descent into despair for Mara's mother, Evelyn, who became the family's steadfast advocate. She refused to let the case grow cold, funding private investigators with her modest savings and scouring online forums for any shred of information. Evelyn's days were spent poring over maps, marking areas the official search had missed, her fingers tracing the jagged lines of the Tetons as if she could will her daughter and grandchildren back. The public, too, kept the story alive, with amateur sleuths dissecting every detail. The weather reports from that September day, the family's gear list, even the last known photo taken by a hiker who captured the Harper's mid-trail, their figures small against the vastness of the peaks. That image, now iconic, showed Elias leading the way, Mara holding Lila's hand, and Jonah skipping ahead, a snapshot of a moment frozen in time. But as 2017 gave way to 2018 and then to 2019, the trail grew colder, the hope dimmer. The Grand Tetons, with their stoic beauty, seemed to mock the searchers, their secrets locked tight within the stone and snow. It was in the summer of 2023, 7 years after the disappearance, that a breakthrough came, not from a determined investigator, but from two geology students, Ethan and Claire, who were mapping rock formations in a remote section of the park. Their work took them far from the beaten paths, into a rugged expanse of granite domes and hidden caves where few dared to venture. On a sweltering August afternoon, Claire noticed something unusual, a glint of color against the gray rock, partially obscured by a tangle of sagebrush. She called Ethan over, and together they approached, their curiosity piqued by what looked like a fragment of fabric wedged into a narrow cave mouth. The entrance was low, barely 3 feet high, its interior shrouded in darkness, but the red hue of the material was unmistakable, a stark anomaly in the natural palette. They hesitated, knowing the park's strict leave-no-trace policy, but the sight of something so out of place compelled them to investigate. Armed with headlamps and a small toolkit, they crawled inside, the cool air hitting them like a shock after the heat outside. What they found would unravel the mystery that had haunted the region for nearly a decade. Don't miss the shocking revelation. Subscribe today, or risk letting this family's story vanish forever like they did. The cave's interior was a narrow, claustrophobic tunnel, its walls slick with moisture and etched with the scars of ancient water flows. Ethan and Claire moved cautiously, their headlamps casting jittery beams across the rough granite, illuminating a scene that felt untouched by time. The red fabric they'd spotted from outside wasn't just a fragment, it was part of a larger object, wedged tightly against a crevice where the tunnel narrowed. As they edged closer, their breath shallow with anticipation, the shape resolved into something unmistakable. A child's backpack, its vibrant red faded but still defiant against the drab stone. The straps were tangled, the zippers rusted shut, and the fabric bore the scars of years, tears, dirt, and what looked like faint scorch marks. Ethan reached out, his gloved hand trembling slightly as he freed it from its stony prison, the weight of it surprising them both. This wasn't just debris, it was a relic, a silent witness to a story long buried. They exchanged a glance, the unspoken question hanging heavy. Could this be connected to the Harpers? The thought sent a chill through them, and they knew they couldn't leave it behind. With careful hands, they secured the backpack and retraced their steps, the cave's darkness seeming to close in as they emerged into the fading light. Back at their campsite, Ethan and Claire examined their find more closely, their geologist's precision giving way to a mix of awe and unease. The backpack was a high-end model, designed for rugged outdoor use, with padded straps and a reinforced frame, gear that didn't belong abandoned in such a remote spot. Inside, they found a jumble of items: a crumpled map of Grand Teton National Park, a child's water bottle with a faded cartoon design, and a small, weathered journal. The map was marked with a route that roughly aligned with the Lupine Meadows Trail, the last known path of the Harper family. But the ink was smudged, the paper brittle. The journal, its pages yellowed and water-damaged, contained fragmented entries in a hurried scrawl, dates from September 2016, mentions of cold, help, and a child's name, Lila. The implications were staggering, and the students wasted no time. The next morning, they drove to the Moose Visitor Center, the backpack cradled like a fragile artifact, and laid it before Ranger Elena Voss. Her reaction was immediate, a sharp intake of breath, her eyes locking onto the red fabric as if it were a ghost materializing before her. She had seen that backpack before, in the family photo that had haunted her desk for years, the one where Elias carried it, Lila nestled inside, her small face peering out with innocent curiosity. The discovery reignited the case with a fury, transforming a cold file into a living investigation. The backpack was rushed to the Wyoming State Crime Lab in Cheyenne, where forensic experts, led by Dr. Nadia Patel, began a meticulous analysis. The red nylon showed minimal UV degradation, suggesting it hadn't been exposed to direct sunlight for the full 7 years, a finding that baffled the team. Tensile strength tests on the straps revealed they retained much of their original integrity, defying the expected brittleness of prolonged weathering. The most telling clue came from the journal's pages, where microscopic analysis detected traces of ash and charcoal, hinting at a fire that had burned within the cave. Dr. Patel's conclusion was clear. The backpack had spent most of its time in a sheltered environment, protected from the elements, only recently deposited in the cave by some force of nature. The investigators turned to park hydrologists who pointed to a rare flash flood in July 2023, a deluge that had ravaged the high country, uprooting trees and shifting boulders. The flood, they theorized, had swept the backpack from its hiding place, carrying it into the cave where Ethan and Claire found it. This revelation shifted the search from the cave as an end point to a starting point, a drift marker leading back to where the Harpers had last been alive. Ranger Voss assembled a specialized team, climbers, trackers, and a forensic anthropologist, to retrace the flood's path. They ventured into the wild heart of the Tetons, where the terrain was a brutal mosaic of cliffs, scree slopes, and dense conifer thickets. The flood had carved a chaotic channel through a remote basin, its steep walls offering potential shelters. For days they scoured the area, their eyes peeled for any sign. A scrap of fabric, a footprint, a child's toy. On the 4th day, deep within a narrow ravine, they found it. A shallow cave, its entrance half collapsed, concealed by a curtain of twisted roots. Inside, the air was stale, the floor littered with debris. But what caught their breath was the sight of skeletal remains, 2 adult-sized and 2 child-sized, arranged as if in rest. The scene was hauntingly peaceful, yet the fractures on the adult bones told a story of a fall, likely from the ravine's edge above. Dental records later confirmed the devastating truth. These were the Harpers. But the cave held more. A rusted knife with a carved handle, not Elias's style, and a faint scent of smoked meat lingering in the air. The discovery raised a chilling question. Had someone else been here? Don't turn away now. Subscribe before the next shocking twist is lost to the wind, and stay with us to honor this family's memory. The investigation took a darker turn as forensic teams combed the cave, their findings painting a complex picture. The knife, analyzed for DNA, yielded traces of an unknown individual, suggesting a third party's presence. The smoked meat scent led to ash samples, revealing a fire pit that had burned intermittently over months, far longer than the Harpers could have survived. Ranger Voss recalled rumors of poachers in the park, solitary figures who harvested elk or deer illegally, living off the land in hidden camps. The carved handle, a signature of handmade tools, pointed to such a figure, someone skilled in survival, but operating outside the law. The flood had likely displaced their camp, scattering evidence, including the backpack, into the cave. Investigators launched a manhunt, scouring old park records for citations of illegal activity. They found a name, Calvin Reed, a local trapper cited in 2015 for unauthorized camping, known for his reclusive nature and custom-carved gear. His last known sighting was in 2016, near the Harper disappearance, before he vanished from public view. The trail led to a dilapidated cabin in the Wind River Range, where Reed was found living off-grid, his gaunt face betraying years of isolation. Confronted with the evidence, the knife, the backpack, the cave, Reed broke down, his confession spilling out in a raspy monotone. He had been in the ravine that day, tracking elk, when he witnessed the Harpers fall from a crumbling ledge. Elias, gravely injured, had begged him to save the children, pushing Jonah and Lila toward him as Mara clung to life. In a panic, Reed took the kids, intending to seek help, but fear of prosecution for his illegal activities drove him to hide them instead. He built a camp in the cave, caring for them with rudimentary skills, but Mara and Elias succumbed to their injuries within days. Reed claimed he raised Jonah and Lila as his own, teaching them to survive, but the flood forced him to abandon the site, leaving the backpack behind. The children, now 17 and 15, were located with Reed, their identities confirmed by DNA. The reunion with Evelyn was tearful, yet fraught. Jonah and Lila knew only Reed as family. As Reed faced charges, the Harper story became a testament to survival, loss, and the haunting choices made in the wild. Don't let their journey end here. Subscribe now, or miss the chance to support a family's legacy forever. The revelation of Calvin Reed's confession sent shockwaves through the investigative team and the public, unraveling a tale of survival intertwined with moral ambiguity that left everyone grappling for answers. The cave, once a silent tomb, now echoed with the weight of Reed's words, his raspy voice painting a picture of desperation and misguided intent. He described the hours after the fall, how Elias's final breaths had been spent pleading for his children's lives, his broken body unable to rise as Mara's weakened grip slipped away. Reed, a man hardened by years of solitary life, had acted on instinct, scooping up Jonah and Lila and retreating to the cave's depths, where he built a makeshift shelter from branches. The children, traumatized and silent, clung to him as their only lifeline, their young minds unable to comprehend the loss of their parents. Reed scavenged for food, berries, small game, anything to keep them alive, his illegal trapping skills now serving a grim purpose. The fire pit, with its ash and charred remains, became their hearth, a flickering symbol of hope in the darkness. Forensic analysis corroborated Reed's account, uncovering traces of the children's DNA on the cave walls and in the backpack, alongside Reed's fingerprints on the knife and journal. The journal entries, though fragmented, revealed a father's fading strength, Elias's handwriting documenting their descent into despair, his love for Mara and the kids etched in every line. The map, marked with their intended route, showed a detour into the ravine, likely a misstep on the unstable ledge that led to their fall. Dr. Patel's team estimated the adults died within 48 hours, their injuries too severe for survival without medical aid, while the children's presence in the cave extended for months, sustained by Reed's crude care. The flash flood of 2023 had ended this fragile existence, forcing Reed to flee with Jonah and Lila, abandoning the backpack as the waters rose. The reunion at the Wind River cabin was a scene of raw emotion. Evelyn, now in her 60s, arrived with Ranger Voss, her hands trembling as she faced the teenagers who were her grandchildren. Jonah, tall and lean with his father's dark eyes, stood protectively by Lila, whose long hair and quiet demeanor mirrored Mara. They spoke little, their world shaped by Reed's tales of a life on the run, a narrative that had erased their past. Evelyn's tears fell as she whispered their names, but the children's blank stares revealed a gulf of memory lost to time. DNA tests confirmed their identity, yet the legal and emotional complexities loomed large. Reed was arrested, charged with kidnapping and failure to report a death, his fate resting on a court's interpretation of his actions, heroism or crime. The community rallied around Evelyn, organizing support for the children's transition, but the scars ran deep. Jonah and Lila, now thrust into a world of media scrutiny and family they didn't know, struggled to reconcile their dual identities. Ranger Voss, haunted by the case, vowed to ensure their story was told with care, not sensationalism. The cave, sealed as a crime scene, became a somber monument to the Harper's final days, its secrets laid bare but its lessons lingering. Investigators continue to probe Reed's past, seeking others he might have encountered, while Evelyn works to rebuild a bond with her grandchildren, her hope a fragile thread in a tale of loss and redemption. Don't let this family's struggle fade. Subscribe now, or live with the guilt of turning away from their fight for justice. The Grand Tetons, silent once more, hold the echoes of a family's vanished dream, a mystery solved but never fully healed. The arrest of Calvin Reed marked a turning point, but the aftermath unfolded like a slow, unraveling thread, pulling at the fabric of a community still reeling from the Harper family's ordeal. The Wind River cabin, a ramshackle refuge of weathered logs and patched tarps, stood as a stark testament to the years Reed had spent hiding with Jonah and Lila, its interior a chaotic blend of survivalist ingenuity and childlike remnants. Carved wooden toys, a tattered blanket, and a crude chalkboard with faded lessons scrawled in uneven handwriting. Ranger Elena Voss, her face etched with the exhaustion of a case that had spanned nearly a decade, oversaw the evidence collection, her hands steady as she bagged the knife and journal, though her heart ached with the weight of what they represented. The children, now 17 and 15, were taken into protective custody, their transition to a world beyond the wilderness, a delicate operation handled by child psychologists and social workers. Evelyn Harper, her silver hair framing eyes swollen from tears, remained a constant presence, her voice soft but firm as she spoke to Jonah and Lila, trying to bridge the chasm of lost years with stories of their parents' love. The legal proceedings against Reed began swiftly, unfolding in a Cheyenne courtroom where the public gallery buzzed with reporters and locals seeking closure. The prosecution painted Reed as a criminal, arguing that his failure to report the Harpers' deaths and his decision to keep the children constituted kidnapping, a charge that could see him imprisoned for decades. Evidence from the cave, DNA, the journal, the flood-displaced backpack, built a case of intent, suggesting Reed had deliberately concealed the tragedy to avoid his own legal troubles. Yet the defense countered with a narrative of survival, presenting Reed as a flawed savior who, in a moment of panic, chose to protect the children rather than abandon them to the wild. His confession, recorded in a dim interrogation room, revealed a man broken by guilt, his voice cracking as he described feeding Jonah and Lila with hunted game, teaching them to read from the journal's pages, and shielding them from the cold with his own body heat. The jury faced a moral dilemma: punish a man for a crime born of desperation, or recognize a desperate act of humanity. As the trial progressed, Jonah and Lila's story emerged in fragments, pieced together by therapists and investigators. They recalled a life of isolation, where the cave was home, its walls their classroom, and Reed their stern but caring guardian. Lila spoke of nights by the fire, where Reed told tales of the mountains, blending myth with the Harpers' memory, though he never named them as their parents. Jonah, more reserved, remembered the flood, the roar of water, the frantic escape, and the loss of the backpack that held their last link to the past. Their resilience was remarkable, yet their detachment from Evelyn underscored the trauma of a stolen childhood. DNA results, confirmed by the Wyoming State Crime Lab, left no doubt. They were Mara and Elias's children, their genetic ties a bridge to a family they couldn't yet embrace. Evelyn, determined to reclaim her role, enrolled them in counseling, hoping to rebuild a bond through shared memories of picnics and hikes, though each session revealed the depth of their disconnection. The media frenzy intensified, with headlines like "Teton Survivor Kids Found" dominating news cycles, drawing true crime enthusiasts and armchair detectives to dissect every detail. Online forums buzzed with theories. Some praised Reed as a reluctant hero, others vilified him as a thief of innocence, while the Harper family photo, once a symbol of joy, now carried a haunting weight. Ranger Voss, weary of the spotlight, focused on the investigation's loose ends, tracking Reed's past movements through park records and interviewing old associates. A lead emerged. A trapper's log from 2016 mentioning Reed's presence near Lupine Meadows, corroborating his account but raising questions about others he might have met. The cave, reopened for further analysis, yielded a rusted tin with ginseng roots, hinting at poaching ties that could implicate a network, though no concrete evidence surfaced. Public reactions split along emotional lines, with vigils held for the Harpers and petitions circulating for Reed's leniency, reflecting a society grappling with justice versus mercy. Evelyn, amidst the chaos, found solace in small victories: Jonah's tentative smile at a family dinner, Lila's curiosity about a wildflower book, each moment a step toward healing. Yet the Grand Tetons loomed large, their silent peaks a reminder of the family's vanished dream, a landscape that had both claimed and preserved them. As the trial neared its end, the outcome hung in the balance, a decision that would shape Jonah and Lila's future and echo through the mountains for years to come. Don't let this family's legacy slip away. Subscribe now, or bear the guilt of ignoring their fight for justice, and stay with us to witness the resolution. The courtroom in Cheyenne grew tense as the trial of Calvin Reed reached its climax, the air thick with the weight of a decision that would ripple beyond its walls. The jury, a mix of ranchers, teachers, and retirees, had listened intently for weeks, their faces a canvas of conflicting emotions as prosecutors and defense attorneys laid out their cases. The prosecution leaned heavily on the forensic evidence, the cave's skeletal remains, the displaced backpack, the journal's desperate scrawls, arguing that Reed's failure to report the Harpers' deaths and his subsequent concealment of Jonah and Lila constituted a deliberate crime. They presented expert testimony from Dr. Nadia Patel, whose analysis of the cave's ash and the backpack's condition painted a timeline of neglect, suggesting Reed prioritized his own freedom over the children's safety. The rusted knife, with its carved handle and Reed's DNA, was held up as proof of his intent to live off the grid, potentially implicating him in a broader poaching network that might have influenced his actions. The state sought a sentence of 25 years, framing Reed as a man who stole not just the Harpers' lives, but their children's identities. The defense, however, wove a counter-narrative of survival and unintended guardianship. Reed's attorney called character witnesses, former trapping partners and a distant cousin, who described him as a loner but not a monster, a man shaped by the harshness of the wilderness rather than malice. Reed himself took the stand, his gaunt frame slouched in the witness box, his voice a low rasp as he recounted the fall. He spoke of Elias's final plea, Mara's fading gasps, and the children's terrified cries, his decision to take them driven by a primal urge to protect rather than a calculated scheme. "I was scared," he admitted, his eyes downcast. "I didn't know what to do, but I couldn't leave them to die." The defense highlighted the cave's makeshift camp, the fire pit, the toys, the journal lessons, as evidence of his efforts to care for Jonah and Lila, arguing that his actions, while illegal, stemmed from a misguided sense of duty. They requested leniency, proposing a reduced sentence with community service, citing his role in the children's survival. Outside the courtroom, the public's response was a storm of opinion. Vigils for the Harpers lit up Jackson Hole, candles flickering against the night sky, while online petitions for Reed's release garnered thousands of signatures, fueled by a narrative of a rugged hero undone by circumstance. Evelyn Harper, seated in the front row each day, became a symbol of endurance, her presence a quiet demand for justice tempered by a mother's hope. Jonah and Lila, excused from testifying due to their age and trauma, watched proceedings via a secure feed, their counselors noting their growing curiosity about their parents' world. The trial's emotional toll was palpable. Evelyn's hands trembled as she clutched a photo of Mara and Elias, while Ranger Elena Voss, a constant figure in the gallery, scribbled notes, her mind racing with unresolved questions about Reed's past. The jury deliberated for 3 days, a period of agonizing silence for all involved. On the 4th morning, a verdict was reached, guilty of kidnapping and failure to report a death, but with a recommendation for mercy due to mitigating circumstances. The judge sentenced Reed to 10 years, with the possibility of parole after 5, acknowledging his role in saving the children while condemning his choice to hide them. The ruling split the community. Some saw it as fair, others as too lenient, yet it offered a legal closure that allowed focus to shift to Jonah and Lila's future. Reed, his face etched with resignation, was led away, his parting glance at the children a mix of sorrow and relief. Evelyn's journey with her grandchildren intensified in the trial's wake. She moved them to a small house in Jackson, its windows framing the Tetons as a constant reminder of their past. Counseling sessions became a battleground of memory, with Jonah recalling fragments of his father's voice and Lila sketching wildflowers her mother had named. Their adjustment was slow, marked by moments of connection, Evelyn teaching Jonah to fish, Lila reading aloud from Mara's old botany notes, but also by resistance, their loyalty to Reed a lingering thread. Schools provided structure, yet peers' whispers about their story created a barrier, forcing Evelyn to advocate fiercely for their privacy. She enrolled them in outdoor programs, hoping the mountains might heal where words failed, their first hike a tentative step toward reclaiming the wilderness that had shaped their lives. Ranger Voss, meanwhile, pursued the poaching angle, uncovering a network of trappers operating in the Tetons' remote corners. A ginseng tin from the cave led to a retired ranger's memory of Reed trading with a man named Harlan Tate, last seen in 2017. Tate's trail was cold, but Voss suspected others had crossed paths with Reed, potentially witnessing the fall or aiding his escape. The investigation expanded, drawing in federal wildlife agents, their search yielding old campsites and cached gear, though no direct link to the Harpers emerged. The cave, now a protected site, underwent further excavation, revealing a child's shoe and a charred photograph fragment, possibly of the family, deepening the mystery of their final days. The Harpers' story transcended local headlines, becoming a case study in survival ethics and family resilience, debated in universities and documentaries. Evelyn, bolstered by community support, founded a foundation in their name, raising funds for wilderness safety education, her drive fueled by a need to prevent another tragedy. Jonah and Lila, growing into their identities, began to ask questions about the fall, about Reed, about the life they might have had. The Grand Tetons, their silent witness, stood tall, their peaks a backdrop to a healing process as enduring as the stone itself. Don't abandon this family's fight. Subscribe now, or carry the burden of missing their ongoing journey, and join us to support their legacy.